What do you believe right now that's making you feel this way? And when you analyse it, you realise how irrational you can be at times.
Every single one of our major customers and minor customers all shut their doors overnight.
It's not sales per se, but the outcome of it is because people get to know you, they get to see you.
Making those efficiencies to maximise service profits as well as just product profits.
When you lose the enthusiasm, that's the point to move on.
Scaling up a business isn't easy. If it were, we wouldn't have less than 4% of businesses scaling beyond 10 employees or around £1 million turnover level, and less than 1% beyond 50 employees. But the contribution that we make as owner-managers to our economies is immense and should never be underestimated, yet it can be a tough gig for all of us at times. And only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And through ScaleUp Radio, we aim to help make things a little easier. We interview guests who have been where you are now and may have faced some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked for them, as well as what didn't. And we've also combined many of the lessons from these interviews and also through working with hundreds of owner-managers over the last 10 years or so into a practical scale-up handbook that we've called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System, or ESIS. And it's for owner-managers like you and me as we navigate our own scale-up journey. And you can order a copy through your favourite online book retailer or by going to all the W's, esisgroup.co.uk, www.esusgroup.co.uk.
Hello and welcome to this episode of ScaleUp Radio. I'm Granger Forson, www.bizsmart-gloucestershire.co.uk, or find me on LinkedIn. Today, we will embark on an electrifying journey through the land of process automation and data optimization with Mark Hutchinson, founder of Accellier. A business that has been a beacon of change for the past 10.5 years, Accellier is armed with a treasure chest of advisory services and technologies empowering business owners to extract the very essence of value from their data. Accellier is the secret alchemy that transforms struggling businesses into an oasis of efficiency and profitability for those who yearn to build impenetrable fortresses of success. This episode is key to your vault. With a growing team of 12 sharp-minded people spread between UK and India, Accellier has a catalyst for change in micro and small businesses. But the real magic lies not just in their numbers, but in their unparalleled tailor-made solutions they forge for each client. Get ready to unlock the gates of the future as we explore the world of open source technologies and low-code solutions. Understand the art of choosing the right tools for your venture and the importance of customization. Fasten your seatbelts as Mark Hutchinson narrates his odyssey from redundancy to entrepreneurship and shares the precious gems of wisdom he has unearthed along the way. So put on your explorer's hat and let's dive into the depths of data gold rush with Accellier's Midas touch. Let's go over and listen to Mark. So hello, Mark Hutchinson. Welcome to ScaleUp Radio. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, Granger. I'm Mark Hutchinson. I'm the Managing Director of Accellier, and I'm excited to be here today.
Awesome. Please tell us about Accellier. You know, how big are you? What do you do for your clients? How long have you been going?
So as a business, we are just over 10.5 years old. We're up to a team of 12 employees that's split between the UK and India. In fact, most of our resource is actually based in India, about 80% of the team. As a business, we quite simply help business owners to improve and automate business processes and extract more value from their data. And we do this through a combination of advisory services and technology. We spend a lot of our lives removing things like manual processes, people trapped behind spreadsheets, siloed systems that don't talk to each other, older technology that's not really fit for purpose currently, or it's certainly not supporting the business strategy. And we remove siloed systems where business owners typically struggle to get data out of it for reporting quickly, easily, and accurately. And the outputs from the work that we do is that we really help businesses to grow faster, operate more efficiently and effectively at a lower price point, and contribute to helping them outperform their competitors. Some of the successes that we've had is in the last few years is we've enabled some companies to grow from 15 to 280 employees in the space of 3 years. We've taken some companies the other way where they've had struggling businesses with 54 employees, and we've automated their business to the extent where we've reduced their headcount to 36 employees, and they're still operating the same business, but on a much lower cost base. We also help a lot of micro and traditional small businesses. So we'll help them put in affordable, solid foundations that help them get traction cost effectively from a very early stage in their business. And with most of our engagements, even in very traditional and small businesses, we can usually quantify the impact of what we do in tens and hundreds of thousands of pounds a year.
Awesome. I like automation and the development of solutions around that. Some of my background has been very similar in terms of that, working in big corporate worlds. So, yeah. So, types of clients. How do clients find you? You know, do you find them? Do they find you? What sort of marketing and things do you do?
A lot of businesses, there's a good mix in there. My background is mostly sales and sales management over the last 30 years. So on day one, starting the business, there was myself, a new laptop and a new mobile phone, and off we went, having a lot of conversations. You then grow a business, you get some customers on board. We've done very, very well in terms of referrals and recommendations, and about 40% of our customer base has all come through way of introduction. And although we're a UK business, we've done that to the extent where we've actually got 9 customers in Austin, Texas, that all came from one customer that we picked up 9.5 years ago, and 2 of those are actually referrals from referrals. So if you do a good job, it can work well. Although we've been trading for 10.5 years, we are only really just getting to the point where we're starting to look at marketing. We've had a few leads. We probably get 6 or 7 inquiries a year from our website without doing any kind of SEO or promotion, which is good, but the overall numbers are relatively low. We get bits and pieces from LinkedIn and Facebook, but we're only just really coming to that point where we're starting to look at marketing and plan on investing a bit of money to get more inbound inquiries coming in faster.
So if I was potentially one of your clients, what would I be thinking about then that would then sort of drive me to find yourself in terms of doing that? What are the sort of questions and things that be going around my mind?
You'd probably be pulling your hair out and frustrated with all of the internal problems that you have in your business. That's usually what kicks it off for us. Very, very few companies, when they start a business or they start trading in the first few years, really think about processes and systems. They're too busy going out and trying to generate customers and generate an income and deliver services. And a lot of our customers, probably 70% of them, are businesses that are 5 to 15 years old. They've enjoyed a bit of early stage success and growth, and they've got to a point where either nobody's ever really looked at processes and systems before, or various people have been out and they've subscribed to a CRM system and a stock management system and something for accounting and an online project management tool, and somebody else is working in Excel, and there's lots of gaps and problems. But there's still quite a lot of companies out there in terms of traditional SME businesses that are still largely running on manual processes and lists in Excel, that are doing everything very manually and working in an inefficient way.
So, I've got frustrations. I've got multiple systems. Maybe I'm using any at all. Why come to you? What would be my knock on the door? Well, what would I be thinking to? So I've got that frustration. I can see that, but why would I knock on Mark's door, not Accellier's door?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing is, I think we've historically acted as independent consultants at the software layer around business applications where there's not that many people working. Historically, in the past, companies would go out and do research online and research options and approach vendors on an individual basis. And they're then in a situation where they've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 vendors, or in some cases more, all trying to pitch their offerings. And to customers, sometimes they all sound good, sometimes they all sound bad. A lot of the time, they're not really comparing apples for apples. And individual vendors don't usually take enough time trying to understand what the customer's challenges and issues are, what their objectives are for the future, what's working, what's not working within the business, and really taking the time to understand their processes. And in a lot of businesses, processes are things that just happen. They've never really been defined as a starting point. So if you can pull all of that together and apply just some fairly simple, tried and tested methodologies and a bit of common sense to it, you can get a much better fit between the technology and what customers need to support them well, as opposed to trying to do things on a more ad hoc, informal basis. There's a lot of businesses out there that have been through 2, 3, 4, 5 plus different business applications, and none of them have actually got rid of the issues and challenges that they were trying to address in the first place, or generated the business results. So we can take customers from where they are now to realizing the tangible business benefits and get rid of all of the carnage, for want of a better word, that usually exists in the middle.
And do you do that by specifically building a solution or connecting different platforms together? What's sort of your normal sort of outcome, should we say, of working with you?
It can vary from customer to customer. 10.5 years ago, when we started the business, we originally started working with non-commercial open source applications. A lot of what we do is around CRM, ERP, and other big core application areas. And that had the benefit of wiping out and removing a lot of licensing costs, licensing restrictions, giving customers more flexibility about how solutions were implemented and ownership. And we found that by using open source technologies, we could often deliver customers much more in the way of a return on investment at a lower price point. But open source isn't right for every customer or for every requirement. So over the years, we've ended up with customers that are using a mix of open source, some proprietary commercial software applications, some software as a service applications. Some of the applications are very much standalone, and you can have a small business where one application runs all of their business processes and reporting in an all-in-one type application. And then for other customers, some of our larger ones have 40 plus standalone applications that are all fully integrated together. So there's a complete mix, really.
Yeah. Okay. Definitely, I can definitely see that and understand how that would depend on what the client wants in terms of their structure. Now, you've used the word open source. I know on your website you also talk about low code. I myself in the past have experienced and done some low code, no code type work. What do they mean, and how do you use those within your business?
So low code and no code solutions are basically platforms or software applications that organizations have written, where we can download and install that application, and we can then configure or customers can configure themselves if they have some capabilities internally, where you can build business applications very quickly through configuration without having to write any code. So it can reduce development timescales by anything up to 90%, depending on what the application is and what's needed. Because they take significantly lower levels of resources to build, that also obviously brings the costs of an implementation down. You just need to do a bit of due diligence up front just to make sure that the application is fit for purpose and it will meet your medium and longer term goals, not just the immediate stuff that a lot of customers tend to look at today.
Yeah.
They can be a very, very good tool to use. The only limitation is really understanding what you can do with each tool and where the limitations of that tool is. If it's a larger and a more complex project, then often you can hit limitations where you can configure 70 to 80% of it. And then to deliver the rest, you're back into writing code and extending it again.
Yeah.
So finding out the right approach for each project and each customer is absolutely key.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, and software development, in terms of a marketplace, there are lots of software houses out there. What do you think? What makes you different? Why have you been successful over the last 10.5 years in terms of your growth?
Yeah, I mean, you're quite correct. There are a lot of software companies that's out there, but it's quite interesting sometimes when companies approach you on a fairly consistent basis where they've been looking for things for 2, 3, 4 years and they've not actually found out what they're looking for. Within software companies that focus on mostly small and medium-sized businesses, a lot of these organizations were started and are run by software developers and technical people. They're not CRM stroke ERP consultants that really understand business processes and data analysis. The model that we have is we have some very strong experienced consultants that will handle the customer engagement piece, that have a lot of experience in delivering projects at a corporate level as well as an SME level, but these guys are offshore. So what we're delivering is a corporate level type experience, but we're doing it at a price point that works for small and medium-sized businesses. We have a number of tried and tested methodologies that we use to deliver projects successfully, some of which are our own. And we're typically very good at aligning business strategy and the technology requirements. At the end of the day, technology is just there to support business processes and the stuff that's already been decided. I think for a lot of, especially smaller businesses, there's a business strategy over here, and then we're going to buy this bit of technology here, but there's no connection between the two. It's I need to track sales opportunities, so I'll put a CRM in place, and then 12, 18 months down the line, they want it to do something else. And all of a sudden, they find out there's a gap there and it doesn't actually do that, and now to migrate to another system, and there's more money to spend and more reworking and the hassle of retraining users and doing data migration and all of that stuff.
I remember that very well from my corporate world. A number of times we would do that. So if you can take some of that pain away and that structure in small businesses, that's really awesome in terms of that structure and thinking. So and I like the idea there. You said, you've got, the corporate level of thinking in terms of that, but at an SME price because of the way that your business model works through using offshore. So yeah, really fascinating. So let's go back then to 10.5 years ago. I remember you started off with a statement. Was it there was you and a laptop and a phone? What triggered the creation of Accellier? What and how's the growth been since then?
Yeah, so I moved from Yorkshire down into the southwest with an employer at the time, which was just before the 2008 recession. I was the first man that they put down in a big new office just south of Bristol. So there was 200 desks and me in a building.
Oh, wow.
The recession hit and they did a U-turn on strategy. And as opposed to pull me back up to Yorkshire, there was a general culling of heads. So I was just made redundant. I then went through a situation where the market was fairly difficult. So I picked up some contracting and temporary roles. Had another 2 roles that I secured that went from contract to permanent, but then they went through redundancies as well. And in the end, I just sarcastically said one day I could do this better myself. And my partner said, "Why don't you?" And that was really where we started.
Awesome. So laptop and phone in hand. How did the first years go? What have you learned over the last few years and 10 years, of growth?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you start a business from scratch. The first 6 months you are just purely in sales mode, speaking to as many customers as possible to try and identify those businesses that have got issues around processing and data that they need to resolve. And that helps us get traction very quickly. Our revenue in the first few months 1 was 0, month 2 was about £2,600, month 3 was £6,500, and then it just continued increasing. Fortunately, we've had 10 years of straight growth. So most years we've been growing at 15 to 20% a year, which I think is reasonable. It probably helps us because we have a mix of upfront charges in terms of consultancy and implementing technology. And then with about 70% of our customers, there's also a level of recurring revenue for things like hosting and support fees, which isn't high, but it adds a level of stability into the business.
Yeah.
When you know you've got most of the money coming in on a monthly basis to kind of cover most of your business overheads.
Yes, absolutely. The recurring revenue is that big that gives you that stability, rather than the peaks and troughs, and then the rest helps you build in terms of doing that. Yeah, so a very, very known business model, and a very important one in terms of that. So, can you share any things that went wrong over the last 10 years that you wouldn't repeat?
I think with some of them, it's where some of the things that have made us successful is we've had very, very close relationships with all of our customers. So we do a lot of hand-holding with them in the early stages to make sure that we're onboarding them properly. Users are fully trained with applications, and they get the benefits out of it. A lot of our solutions are customized to a level for individual businesses. So they're getting a very personalized, tailored experience. The challenge with that is the stuff that's worked for us for the first 6 or 7 years then starts to hold you back a little bit because that model of doing a lot of bespoke services just isn't scalable. We're up to a team of 12, but if you look at most small software companies in the UK, then a lot of them get stuck between 6 and 10 employees. That's just a scale. Beyond that point, you need managers and project managers, and it just kind of breaks the commercial model. So at the minute, we are in a pivoting position where we're saying, okay, the stuff that we've done historically is what we refer to internally as the solution side of our business. So we're now in maintenance of that, and we may still bring on a few more customers each year. But then we're also putting in place a couple of product-specific teams, and we're now taking a productized approach with an ERP system and some software for a niche in the events industry, and we'll try and scale each of those products individually.
Yeah, it's definitely. I've come across that a few times now in terms of software houses that start off doing software for others and then actually take some of those best applications they've probably built and start to really think how can they commoditize those and take those forwards for the next stage of growth. So yeah, very, very true in terms of that. So along your journey, you've had to recruit. You're at 12 staff. You know how, and you've said 80% in India. That's fascinating in terms of that. So how do you ensure you hire the right people?
It's difficult, especially in India. It's the honest answer. There are some very, very experienced, knowledgeable, talented consultants and developers in India. The main challenge is we're competing for those resources with American companies, Canadian, South African, Australian, New Zealand. So the top 20% of resource is in huge demand. Nobody really bothers about the bottom 80% of the resource. They just don't have the communication skills or the technical skills, just aren't up to scratch.
And so is those the people that you try and recruit, the 80%, or do you try and focus on the 20%? Just interested in terms of that answer.
Only the 20%. So the need to have, if you get the right people in the right positions that have an attitude where they are interested in the work and they want to do the work and they've got the capabilities to do the work, when all your ducks are in a row, then things can happen and a business can run very well. But if you manage to make a mistake and you hire the wrong person, and they've got the knowledge and the experience, but they don't want to do it, or they want to do it, but they don't have the knowledge and the experience, then things can be very, very difficult. And I kind of have to put my hands up a bit there. There are people that we've onboarded in the past that we shouldn't. We've probably spent far too long trying to train them up and mold them into something that they were never going to be. And we ended up letting them go. And we should have probably let them go 18 months to 2 years sooner than we did.
And I've had experience of developers and project managers recruitment in India and previous companies. You know, it's been 5 years since I've been doing that. But the experience is most of them it was always a stepping stone onto the next job, a stepping stone on the next job. Does that still exist, or have you managed to keep and retain individuals within your organization for a longer time?
Yeah, we're beating the Indian market by a long way. And the average length of time that an Indian team member has been with us currently stands at 6 years, which is significantly different to the culture in India.
Oh, awesome.
A lot of Indian employers don't particularly like giving pay rises out on a regular basis. And when they do, it's typically 5%, 10% at a time, which in India is considered a bit of an insult because their market is growing rapidly and a lot of employees kind of expecting 15, 20%, which is just not really sustainable for anybody, but that's what their expectation is. So they know that by changing companies, they can get that 15, 20, 25% salary increase. So if you go on LinkedIn and you look at profiles of software developers, then there's a hell of a lot where it's 6 months here, a year here, 2 years here, 3 years there, 2 months here. And it's a revolving door, and you need people that you can rely on that enjoy working with you. It needs to be more than a job, and it needs to be more than money. They have to see something and a reason why they want to work with you. For us, it's probably the quality of projects and the customers that we're working on. There's some small, simple projects that we do, but then there's also some much larger, more complex, challenging, interesting projects. And we try to develop the developers' knowledge and skills and capabilities so that they can have a longer career with us. And because we're not just developing or implementing applications and then handing them off, we need a team that understands what's being implemented, why it's being implemented that way, to make sure that we can provide quality support for customers over the short, medium and long term. If we've got an ever revolving door with staff and we're having to train new staff members up every few months, it just doesn't work.
And you talked about salaries, but you talked about investing in developing the people in terms of their skills and the interesting projects. So how would you describe, the culture that you've built up in the business that is, the people are staying for that length of time? That's a fascinating one. What do you think you else have done to achieve that?
It's an interesting one because I'm not sure I fully understand what we've done ourselves. It's an ever, you think you've just figured it out, and then 2 days later you realise you haven't. So it's a challenging one, but I think some of it is just down to treating people professionally with a bit of respect. Our consultants spend a lot of time working with developers on things that aren't necessarily coding skills. So it could be when you're speaking to a customer, how to qualify the opportunity and really make sure you understand what the requirements are, or including them in solution design work, occasionally including them on calls with customers, so they're not just the guys in the room that sat there coding all day. If we introduce them to customers, then it's involving them a lot more, and they get a much better understanding of the customer's business and the issues and challenges that they're trying to solve. So there's a higher level of buy-in on projects and ownership. And we also have, for a small business, we've developed like an internal training and career development path. So we will benchmark them when they first join the company. And then usually on a quarterly basis, we'll have a review with them and benchmark them where they are against plan at the minute, what areas and skills they need to focus on developing next to take them on the next step up the ladder. And there's very few small software companies that have that kind of review and career development path that's in place.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I've worked in big corporate companies with software development, and they've not had that in place. So that's really good, Mark. That's all. I'll just say that's awesome. So well done. So the other thing about small businesses, we talked about the people side, and I love what you've done with the development of people and the growth, and especially with the outsourcing to India and keeping that long-term people with you. That's really, really clever. Is cash is really important in a business, and growth of a business. So how do you keep on top of cash? What strategies or systems do you use?
A lot of what we do, especially recurring payments for hosting and support, is all collected by direct debit. We use QuickBooks as an accounting system. As a business for projects, it's very common, unless it's a really, really small requirement, that we will take our invoice for a percentage of the work up front and then milestone payments if it's a larger project. So it ensures that the cash is coming in regularly.
Yeah.
And as a Yorkshireman, I just quite simply try and avoid spending anything, Granger. But that only gets you so far. It helps.
Brilliant. So very true. So do you use do you have a regular profit and loss review? Do you use any financial measures in terms of that type of thinking?
It's interesting because I was just discussing this yesterday with our accountant. We did go through a period in QuickBooks where we would set up an annual budget where we could enter our sales targets and expected expenses and build out what we thought the next 12 months would look like on a month-by-month basis. We used to do that every January. And the bit that was kind of missing was the regular tracking against where we were. So we kind of created a budget, and then we got to the end of the year, and then we put another budget in place for next year. And for the last couple of years, we haven't done any of that. We do, but it's not on a detailed basis. So we're actually just gearing up for putting another budget in place and reworking our chart of accounts to give us profit and loss by products and service from the 1st of November this year, which is the start of our next financial year.
Yeah.
And it's one of the areas where we can improve. Look, we do this stuff for customers all the time, but we're a bit like the mechanic that never services his own car in that we're often that focused on doing things for customers, we sometimes forget to do them for ourselves.
Yeah, there's probably lots of systems you could build internally to make your lives a lot easier, maybe.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, what do you love most about your business?
It's probably getting exposure to so many different business owners in different businesses and just seeing what everybody else is doing and how they do it, really. And we work with everybody from, I think our smallest customer at the minute is a small 2-person startup business. Our largest customer, which isn't typical for us, has 27,000 employees and a £2.7 billion turnover. We've got customers in a wide range of different industries, but it's more about when we're working with customers, we start off in their world and we're understanding what their challenges are, their frustrations, their issues, what their objectives are for the future. We have some conversations, we pull a plan together, we implement various things against the plan, technology or otherwise. And it's interesting because some of the big ones are some of the smallest things that we've ever done. There was a guy going back probably 8 or 9 years ago that ran a small events company down south of London. And they were doing quotations in Microsoft Excel. And when they're planning corporate events, there can be 50 line items, or sometimes there can be 300 or 400 line items. And they just get everything finished, and the phone would go, the customer would ring up and say, "Oh, those 2 line items you put out, can you put them back in for us?" And they go, "Yeah, of course we can." And they then spend another 20 minutes, half an hour reformatting the Excel spreadsheet to get everything to fit back on pages again. So we just developed a simple quoting tool in Excel that allowed them just to drop the line items in, push a button, and it'd format everything over how many pages it took into various groups. So equipment and people and AV equipment that was split down. And it just meant that they could format all of their quotations in 15 to 20 seconds as opposed to 20, 30, 40 minutes. And after we'd implemented it, the guy called me up, "I've just done another quote," and it took 6 seconds to do. And it was simple stuff, but to him it was absolutely revolutionary, mind-blowing stuff. So some of the highlights are really seeing when the light bulb goes on in a customer's mind and you realize that they've got and they now understand the benefits of what you're delivering.
Yeah. And
they're starting to experience the benefits that we promised we'd deliver at the start.
Brilliant. Love that. They've seen the benefits on their faces when they've actually you deliver the solutions and they go, "Wow, fantastic." Really good. So, Mark, if we were to meet in 5 years' time and we're looking back over the last 5 years, what would have happened both professionally and personally for you to say they've been a successful 5 years?
It goes back to what I mentioned earlier about introducing some services that are more standardized and scalable. So we've got a business that has a number of offerings in different areas. So we've got some resilience in the business, but also products and services that are more scalable, that we can grow to a larger scale than with our current workload. That for me is key. And as long as we get that right and there's demand for those products and services in the market, which is key, or we can create demand, then we'll scale further and larger than we are now.
Brilliant. And for yourself?
I think it's just more of the same, really. When you start a business, you're in learning mode from day one. It's not so much a steep learning curve as running up to a cliff and banging your head into it for a few years, and eventually you learn a few things. And if people learn from the mistakes, there'd be a lot of geniuses around right now. So it's just really enjoying the journey. You know, we can all enjoy the good times, but I also think you have to enjoy the challenges and the struggles as well as part of the journey, and just enjoy what you're doing, really.
Oh, well, fantastic answer. And I totally agree. You know, that's really what business life is about. It's that learning of growing. People think if growing a business is easy, then everybody would do it. But actually, it's learning and really experiencing as you're going along and having that. I mean, Mark, what a fantastic summary to a great conversation that we've had. You wouldn't believe that, the last 45 minutes has passed in terms of that. You know, starting your business 10.5 years ago after redundancy, and your description of moving down south and being the only person in the room in a large office waiting for everybody else to appear, and then redundancy came from that. I mean, wow, you know, what trials and tribulations you've gone through in terms of that. Growing a 12-person business, you know, outsourcing so much of your team development in India, you know, and personally I know what that's like in terms of doing that, and what you've done in terms of developing the culture in your business and maybe not realizing the level of it, you know, that have allowed, you know, you've got Indian developers still with you after 6 years. I mean, that is absolutely astounding, you know, and really, you know, how you've done that through giving people, by focusing on people, giving them the respect. You talked about developing their growth plan and helping them develop as individuals, but also bringing developers to face with the clients and helping them understand that real integration. And I think that is an awesome thing. I've done a lot of work on agile development in my past, and bringing developers with clients is the most wonderful thing that you can do in anything like that in terms of doing stuff. But, you know, just that keeping going, the development of the business, where you're going next in terms of thinking. And you're right, you're at that pivot point where you move from just doing projects to actually having a robust set of tools or systems that you sell in terms of growth, etc. in terms of doing that, you know, and I love your thinking around, you know, building budgets, but you never really followed it. But now it's time to actually manage that and think that through in terms of doing that. And your final comment, which I started on in this summary, which is just enjoying the journey. I think that's a fantastic statement. So, Mark, thank you so much for that. And we always finish off with a quick fire round, if I may. Just a few questions just to finish off. So if you were to go back to younger you, what advice would you give yourself?
Do it sooner.
Do it sooner. Awesome. That's a great answer. Which books do you recommend?
Favorite business book is EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System by Gino Wickman. For those that haven't heard of it, you have the E-Myth, which takes business owners through the concept of systemizing and standardizing the business, but it doesn't really go into how to do it. And EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, as a book, starts to take business owners more into the how to do it. And it was just one of those books that I nearly didn't buy because I'm not a big lover of the word entrepreneurial. I think it's a bit of a silver bullet type thing. But when I started reading it, I read it from end to end in one sitting. It took about 4.5 hours. And
Brilliant.
I keep referring back to it. So there's a lot of really good stuff that's in there.
Brilliant. Great book. Yes, totally recommend. Any podcasts you listen to? Any you'd recommend?
ScaleUp Radio, Granger.
Thank you very much. And I know you said at the beginning before we recorded that you've listened to a few in terms of understanding what we go through. So thank you. On your phone, are there any apps that really make a difference for you?
I'm not sure you'd call it an app, but I do like the uninstall button, the delete button. And if you get rid of all the apps, you get a lot more work done.
What a fantastic answer. We've not had that one before, Mark. That's brilliant. Thank you so much for that one. My favourite question of all, who's had the most influence on you as a business leader?
God, that is a difficult. You come across that many people that have been in business a good number of years. There's people that you can look at and you just think kind of wow with what they've achieved over the years. I can see in our own customer base, there's people that have been running businesses for considerably less amounts of time than I have, and they've got 30, 40 million pound turnover businesses, and you just think, good on you, one day hopefully I'll have a bit of that. But I think back in the 90s, there was Peter Wilkinson, who I used to work for, who founded Planet Online. And in technology, the thing that I picked up from Peter was he spent a lot of time strategizing and looking at trends in the market and trying to identify the next big opportunity. So you're always riding on demand, and you're always either involved with products and services that there's demand for, as opposed to just doing something today and then trying to do it over the next 40 years. Markets don't stay stable. Technology evolves at a pace.
Yes.
And you have to keep on top of trends, whether it's technology or services or whatever's happening, to make sure you're relevant.
Yeah.
And also one of my first sales managers, who was one of the funniest guys that I'd ever met. But he just installed into me at a very young age that the one thing you always need in your life is a full sales pipeline. And if you've got a full sales pipeline, a lot of the other stuff will sort itself out.
Brilliant advice. Oh, fantastic. Yeah. And finally, Mark, how can people get hold of you?
So they can go to our website at Accellier.com, which is ACCELLIER. Contact me through the email address or phone number that's on the website. I'm very easy to get hold of. And I'm also on LinkedIn as well.
Brilliant. Mark, thank you so much for this amazing conversation today.
Yeah, thank you, Granger. Appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.